Well, as I said earlier, my name is St. Claire, and I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm excited that today I get to bring you God's Word, and we're finishing the series called Jesus is Why. And so you might have noticed a little bit of a theme. You know, every Sunday the answer seems to be Jesus, right? So if the question is, why are we going to love others, the answer is probably going to be Jesus, right. So we're going to get into that. I'm just giving you a little, up front, so you guys are all on the same page with me. But I wanted to share a story that happened to me 20 years ago when I was in Thailand. The very first time I ever went to Thailand, which I'm actually really excited. We are taking a team to Thailand. And yeah, so that's happening in November. That's like 5 weeks from now or something crazy. So I'm excited for that because the first time I went to Thailand, I was 18. But then my wife and I went a couple times twice, I guess, and we were there for almost a year in total, and we lived there, and it was awesome, and ever since we came back, I had felt like God was eventually going to call me back to Thailand, and I thought originally that meant to full-time missions, and it turns out what he means is, wait 18 years and you can take a team every year, So we're taking a team finally, and I'm really excited for it. But yes. Yeah, and so we're actually going to go see Chris and Tab Pagan. They're our missionaries in northern Thailand. We're going to be working with them in their ministry and supporting them in that way. And it's actually Chris's birthday still today because they're 12 hours ahead. So happy birthday, Chris, if you're watching. Because actually the story I want to talk about has to do with Pastor Chris Pagan. So 20 years ago when we went to Thailand, I went with Pastor Chris and our pastor who was here before Pastor Dan, and before Pastor Jesse, and he's moved on to another church now, and his son. So there's 4 of us in total, and we're traveling from one city to another. And the way it works was the bus is pretty full already, but they stop every 10 minutes and pick up more and more people. And so when Chris and I got on, there was not many spots left. There was maybe 6-7 spots total. And so we get on. And so we get on the bus, and we're excited. We got a seat, And as the bus fills up more and more, there's people. Now all the chairs are taken. Now there's people at the front of the bus, and they're just standing there. They got nowhere to go, right? And then more people come on the bus. So the people who were standing at the front of the bus, they make their way further back so that more people can stand at the front of the bus. And I'm just sitting there thinking, man, God has blessed us with these 2 chairs, aren't we so blessed? Everyone paid for the same ticket, and yet here we are sitting in a comfortable seat, we don't have to stand. Wouldn't that suck if we had to stand the whole time? Oh man, that would be rough. And right away, Chris Pagan stands up and offers our seats. There's some ladies coming oh, take our seats. And I was like, what's going on here? We got good spots. Why are we giving them up? Didn't God bless us with these spots? And later Chris told me, he's like, yeah, if my dad ever saw me sitting on the bus when, there was ladies standing, he would not be happy with me. And I could tell that he didn't do it because his dad was going to check in on him, It wasn't in our missions handbook that, whenever you're on a bus and there's not enough chairs, you always give your seat up to somebody. He was doing it out of love. And the crazy thing is, we're in another country. We're guests in that country, and we're taking a bus. We paid for our ticket. We were there first, That's what I'm thinking. I was there first, And Chris is giving up our seats, and I'm thinking, why is he doing this to this total stranger? He can't. It's not like he can share the gospel with her. That was, a long time ago. He wasn't fluent in Thai yet, and he couldn't sit her down and share, this is what Jesus did for me. This is what he can do for you. He didn't share the gospel. All he did was love this total stranger. And I was like, why did we do that? Why love others? I think we already know due to the sermon series. But let's look at that. Let's look at it. So in Luke 6:32, it says, if you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even the sinners love those who love them. And so Chris was showing love to this person that he did not know. They didn't earn his love. They didn't do anything nice for him. There was no reason he had to give up his spot, His dad wasn't checking in on him. There was no rules saying that you had to do this, and he just did it. And of course, I just followed suit because I was 18 and I didn't know what was going on. And I was a little bummed out. I lost my spot, but we did it. Thanks to Pastor Chris. Matthew 22:37-40 says, Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these 2 commandments. So we can see that loving others is a commandment. But that's not why Chris was giving up his seat, right? He didn't do it because it was a commandment. He didn't do it because of his dad. He didn't, And so he was just loving people. And I just keep thinking, like, why? Sometimes you can see, like, okay, this is a good reason to love someone. This is a kind thing to do. But what about when people aren't kind to us? Like, do people deserve our love? Like, for instance, someone cuts you off in traffic, right? If anyone knows me close enough, and you've been in my car, I have a little bit of road rage. Okay, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to lay on the horn. Like, I'm not going to be yelling at people, shaking my fist. I'm not doing that. But I always, if someone cuts me off, I brake, whatever. But I probably will make a snarky remark about how their signal light doesn't work. So that's my kind of road rage. And so, what do I do with that? I gotta love those people anyways, and hopefully those people love me. But what about like a family member, right? Sometimes we have that person in the family that's harder to love, harder to deal with. Maybe they tell you how to raise your kids, and you're not having it. You gotta love them anyways. Maybe they didn't invite you to Christmas dinner. That would suck. Missing out on turkey. You gotta love them anyways. Do they earn our trust? Do they earn our love? Do they deserve it? Or someone, if at work someone is being a jerk at work, trying to get in trouble with the boss, takes credit for your good ideas, gets promoted ahead of you, any of those kind of things. Do they deserve our love? That's the question, really. We think that we should love others. We know that it's a commandment, but why? Do those people, did they earn it? Do they deserve it? That's a question. And that's something I would wrestle with, even when I was 18 in Thailand, It's like, why do I got to love this person? Why do I got to give my seat? It's hot out, and I was sweating. I want to sit down and enjoy this AC for a few minutes, That kind of thing. But why? In those moments, love them anyway. Do they deserve it for what they did to us, So I want to start by looking at what is love. Now, anytime I say what is love, I think of that song. Like, what is love? You guys with me? You know that song? You start nodding your head like this. Okay, but let's look at number one. Love is defined by Jesus. If we look at the scripture in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Now, how many of us could say that they're always patient? Any hands? It says love is patient. It doesn't say sometimes. What about kind? You're always kind to people. Always? Anybody got the always down? Always kind? Pretty tough, but the Bible says love is kind. It doesn't say sometimes it's kind. Keeps no records of wrong. I got a memory. It's not very good, but it can remember when someone's wronged me. So this is an awesome verse when you're at a wedding, because you're thinking like, oh, I'm marrying this person. They're gonna love me no matter what. They're gonna be patient with me no matter what. They're always gonna trust me. They're always gonna, persevere. They're always gonna, they never just dishonor me. All those things. It's nice at a wedding, but when you take this verse and you try to apply it to yourself as a commandment by Jesus of like what love is, we quickly realize it's actually impossible. This is a hard verse, actually. It's fun for a wedding, but not easy for us. Right? Love is patient, love is kind, not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong. And when it says stuff like always hopes, it doesn't say sometimes hopes, it's like a hard and fast line, right? It says it never does this, it always does that. It's not like a maybe, right? It's yes or no, black or white. And that's how we know we can't do it. When you see a verse like that and it says you always do this, no one can always do anything, except for fail maybe. I can always plan to fail. But we need Jesus in those kind of verses. And so this is a tough verse, actually. And this is what love is defined by. So I want to just share a story that kind of illustrates how much I lack patience, and how much I lack kindness, and how much I need Jesus. All right? And so it's sort of a weird story, but these things, they added up, one thing after another, until eventually I was like internally like road raging. And I didn't take it out on anybody, which is good. But yeah, my heart was in a bad place, obviously. So what happened was, this wasn't that long ago, I would go to the co-op to get gas. And I love going to the co-op, especially in the winter, because they fill my gas for me. But the issue is when you go to pay, someone comes and starts your gas, you don't know when it's done. So you're in the co-op, you're waiting to pay for gas. There's like 4 or 5 people like in line, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Ever been there? And they're all waiting for their number to be called, and you're hoping they call your number before that guy. You're hoping that the attendants got it in the right order so you can get in and get out. That's how I am, because I'm always like trying to get in and get out, trying to be fast. And I wanted to get the car washed too, and then go pick up the kids from school. That was my plan, so I had a bit of a time crunch. And they called my number finally, and I was like, okay, good, it's my turn. I go to pay for my gas, and I asked for a car wash, but the machine's not working. So I said, if you want, you can get a car wash and then go check out the other location. And I thought, no, I better not do that. What if there's a huge lineup? Then I'm just going to waste my money buying a car wash, So I go to the other location to see if there's a big lineup or not. There's only 2 people. Oh, perfect. So I go to buy my car wash. But then the car wash is like $4 more. I'm like, why is it more money? And they're like, oh, if you buy it with gas, you get it this price. But if you buy it without gas. And I was like, oh, man, I just got gas, but the other location. And they're like, you should have got the car wash there, And I was like, I know, they told me that, but I, the lineup anyways. So I got my gas, got the car wash. And anyways, then just the way it works is like there's only 2 spots, and then if you line up more cars, you're into the road, and so you have to park around the angle, and then, someone else comes in, and anyways, it's kind of complicated. And so basically what happened was, when it was my turn to get closer to the car wash, a truck pulled in and didn't see me because I was kind of off to the side. So I give like a little beep beep, and like wave to the guy, and he was kind of too far, so he had to back up and look. And he was like, oh, are you going in the car wash? Like pointing, and I was like, yeah, I'm going in the car wash. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he went and took my spot. And I was like, what the, And then I realized like no one can hear each other. We're both just smiling and pointing at the car wash. So he, so then I had to get out and like, hey, actually I am in line. He's like, okay, no problem. And I got my spot. And like literally there was no issues. He was happy, I was happy. But all those things were like building up, and like mentally and emotionally, I just was like going crazy. And I don't know why, but I was like, I just thought it was a great story because like nothing bad happened. And yet I was like, I had no patience. I had like this much, like I had just enough kindness to like ask nicely, and like, why, It's like, I cannot be the kind of person who is always patient. Like this says, I cannot be the kind of person that's always kind. It's something I got to work on, obviously, but always just doesn't work, and that's why we need Jesus. Perseverance is also listed in there, and I want to say, Kelly and I, talking about perseverance, Kelly's been married to me for 19 years last week. Woo! That also means I've been married to her for 19 years, if you guys do the math. Yeah. And anyways, Kelly and I, we've been married for 19 years, and we got married when we were quite young, actually, when we were 19. So we've been married for half our lives now. And I don't recommend that to every 19-year-old, but it worked awesome for us. And yeah. But perseverance, though, we wouldn't be married if we didn't have a little bit of perseverance. Basically, life gets hard. Things come at you. And we're not married because it was easy for 19 years. We're married because we went through some tough times and we prayed for these things, like all these things, right? Perseverance doesn't mean it was all easy, right? You have to persevere through things. Just like, your membership. You get a gym membership, you want to quit right away. You got to persevere through the tough times until you start having fun at the gym or whatever that looks like, right? But perseverance, it's pretty tough to always persevere. And this Bible verse, like in 1 Corinthians, it's impossible. We can't do it without Jesus. So now we're starting to understand a little bit what love looks like. We have a blueprint to follow it. But the question still, why do we have to love others? Why do we do it? So number 2, love points others to Jesus. So Matthew 5:16, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. There was this one time I was in Vancouver. I think it was for my brother's wedding. And it was a long time ago, and we saw this guy. He was a homeless dude. He was asking for some money, and he said he wanted it for food, and we were just around the corner from a 7-Eleven. So I said, hey, why don't I come buy you something? And it seemed like he knew exactly what was on the menu at 7-Eleven because he was telling me how this is on sale and stuff. And I was okay, great. So I took him in, and I got him some stuff. And I thought, that's me like being a witness, right? Helping the guy out. But I thought like I don't want that to be the end of it. Like I don't know this guy, I'll never see him again. I don't know how long he's been on the street. I don't know how many times people have helped him. Like I have no idea anything. I just know today I'm going to help this guy out, buy him some food. And so I quickly shared, that Jesus loves him and you should try to find a church and get in church and that kind of thing if possible. And so I felt like in that time I was trying to use my good deeds and share the gospel at the same time. And so you can kind of do both, right? You don't have to, but that's one option. Now in 1 Peter 2:12, it says, live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father on the day he comes to visit us. So a different story. When I was a kid, I helped someone fix their bike chain. I mean, I was a kid too, but this kid his bike fell off, his pant leg was stuck, and he was a few years younger than me, and I remember helping him get unstuck. And I even thought, like, I could tell him, Jesus loves him or something like that, but I was like, I think he's going to find that cheesy. He's not going to get it. I don't know about this, And so I told myself, I'm going to help this kid. I'm not going to be pushy with the gospel, and I'm going to pray for him, and hopefully, this was a seed and whatever, right? And that's what I did. So there's two different ways you can do this, right? And I think you can use love as a witness, right? Love can be an active witness. Just like Chris was on that bus that day, right? He was being a witness by giving a seat. He didn't sit down and share the gospel with the person. He just gave a seat up, and it was love, an act of love as a witness. The other thing is love as a ripple effect. So Chris told me, right, on the bus, he told me, if my dad ever saw me sitting on the bus with these ladies and they had nowhere to sit, he would not be happy with me. So we know from this story that Chris learned that from his dad. So his dad must have been the kind of person who would give up a seat. Then Chris was the kind of person who gives up a seat. And then he taught me that, and now I'm teaching my kids that. And he taught his son that. And now I'm teaching all you guys this, right? So there's love is a ripple effect. So we can be the kind of people that when we show love, it causes a ripple effect. It doesn't just stop with one act of kindness or one act of love. So the why and why love others is becoming more clear. Through his love is made through our love, his love is made visible to the world. Love points others to Jesus. And love is a response to Jesus. So Ephesians 5:2, walk in the way of love just as Christ loved us. John 13:34, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. 1 John 4:7, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. So love is a response to Jesus. So when someone cuts you off in traffic, right, we're not obligated. We're not, it's not just a commandment that Jesus says that you should love people, but we can be a witness. So how are we going to respond? If you get cut off in traffic, lay on the horn, yell, shake your fists. No, we're going to respond with love because we have Christ's love, right? If a member in your family is mean to you, says mean things, that someone that you work with says something bad about you on Facebook, we can respond with love because we have Christ's love, right? Even if you're in the co-op gas line and things are chaotic, someone cuts in front of you at the window there or the car wash, we can still act with love because we have Christ's love. And so, the verse in Corinthians there, it's impossible to do on our own. We know this, but yet that's the definition the Bible gives us of love. And I think it's impossible on purpose because we need Christ's love. So if we're going to show others love, we do it with Christ's love. John 13:34, love one another as I have loved you. And now in chapter 13, it's interesting that it starts off with Jesus. He's with his disciples. He takes off his jacket, wraps a towel around his waist, and he starts washing the disciples' feet. All 12 of his disciples. Not 11, not 10, not his top 3, all 12. He gets down and washes their feet. He eats a meal with them. Not 11, not 10, not his favorite 3, but all 12. And then he says, after doing those two things, he says, love one another as I have loved you. And then after he's done that, and after he said that, that's when we learn about Judas is about to betray Jesus. But he said, this is how I want you to love people, the way I have loved you. Meaning he loved Judas. And then we find out right after, he's going to betray him. And then we find out that Peter is going to deny him 3 times. But this is how we're supposed to love others. Jesus washed Peter's feet. He washed Judas' feet. He ate with them. He says, love others as I have loved you. This is how and who we should love. It's not easy. It's a commandment, though. And the only way we can do it, the only way we can fulfill love as it is in the Bible, is his love first. So, if you only love those who love you, why should you get any credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. So I want to tell you a story. Actually, I have told the story before, so if you've heard it, you get to hear it again. Lucky you. But years ago, when I was just a janitor here at the church and I was cleaning on a Saturday, normally when you're the only one in the building, you lock the door so you don't have random people coming in looking for coffee or asking, if they can do something because you're the only one here, right? And so I forgot to lock the door, and this lady's coming in, and she's one of those people who's just a little bit more challenging to love. And I remember having this thought run through my head, like, oh, great, she's here again. I'm going to have to go tell her, like, the church is closed, go. Basically, in my head, I'm thinking, I got to go tell this girl to go away, Just had a terrible attitude when you think about it. But as soon as she came in, she says, oh, Dave, it looks like you're cleaning. Do you want me to vacuum for you? Which I was like, oh, man, that cut me a little bit, because it takes like an hour to vacuum this whole main level and the downstairs too. Like, it takes a long time. There's a lot of square footage, right? And so the fact that she came in here and offered to help me, and I was about to give her the boot, I was like, oh, man, I don't think this is how I was supposed to love this person. So sometimes we have people who are challenging to love. But if love flows from Jesus, it's not about how we feel, it's about responding to God's love. So then the question for us is, how are you going to respond to God's love? So the answer, why love others? As we've finally got to, the answer. It's most said right here in 1 John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. Not because it was easy, not because we read 1 Corinthians and we nailed it down. We can love all the time. We can always forgive. We can never keep records of wrong. Not because we're good at it, right? We love because he loved us first. And love is a natural response to his grace and his example. So we love because he first loved us. Love is defined by Jesus. And we know that it's impossible to do. We can't do it on our own, It points others to Jesus. Love points others to Jesus. We can use love as a witness, just as we did on the bus with Pastor Chris all those years ago. And love is a response to Jesus. It's not an obligation, and it's not just a commandment. Jesus is why we love others. Jesus is why. So, his love equips us, it motivates us, it transforms us. What are you going to do to respond to his love? And so today,